Before the PC release of Monster Hunter Rise in 2022, I had something of a love-hate relationship with Monster Hunter. The series looked cool and fun, but whenever I tried to get into it, nothing seemed to click. The demo for Generations felt too clunky, I bounced off of World 3 or 4 times before finally finishing the base game with a friend, and the Nintendo Switch release of Rise was locked to 30 FPS, which made the experience kind of arduous and sluggish. Fast forward to now, and I've played through World and Rise twice, though I still need to finish Iceborne, and I enjoyed Wilds. If you're curious, my last video on the Gogmazios update has a bit of my thoughts on Wilds as a whole. Hey yeah, I'm Moxie, Valstrax enthusiast and local punch rabbit. It's safe to say I love Monster Hunter like a Wall Street banker loves powdering their nose, and while I'm a bit disenchanted with Wilds and waiting on the Master Rank expansion, I decided I wanted to take the time to finally visit the entire series. Total monster saturation. So, without further ado, it's time to dust off the PS2 and untangle the controller cables as we go all the way back to 2004 to hunt Rathalos for the last time for the first time. Alright, here's the deal. There are 2 versions of Monster Hunter 1. You have the base game, simply titled Monster Hunter, which released in 2004, and then you have the Japan exclusive expansion called Monster Hunter G, which added things like higher difficulty quests, another weapon, and subspecies variants of monsters. The West wouldn't get this until a rebalanced and more solo-friendly version of it released on PSP titled Monster Hunter Freedom. The Monster Hunter that the West got was an interesting amalgamation of the base game, but with some of the changes brought on by G. This video is going to focus on a fan-translated Japanese version of Monster Hunter 1, as there are actually mechanical and design differences between the base game and G. Then I'll be able to roll over my save data to G when the time comes. Additionally, I'll be referencing information found on the Monster Hunter Old School Wiki, a pretty comprehensive repository for information on MonHun 1 and the G expansion, as well as Monster Hunter 2. I'll have it linked in the description. You should give it a look. Seeing as this is the first video in my Monster Hunter series, I want to dive into some of the game's mechanics at least a little bit, just in case someone new to the series has no fucking clue what's going on. No, don't look at the length of the video. I said a little bit. It's only going to be a little bit, I promise. One final note before we really get started, I'll be trying to complete every quest to the best of my ability, but I'm not going to hold myself to that if something seems out of my depth. At the least, I'll do my best to complete standard quests, and I'll take event quests on a case-by-case basis. I won't talk about every quest in detail, as sometimes you'll have multiple quests with the same objective, but on different maps. Collect X amount of mushrooms in the forest or jungle or desert, that kind of thing. I'll talk about those quests the first time I do them and make reference if they show up again in a different way later on. Starting the game, we get a beautiful, if crunchy and pixelated cutscene that looks like it'd be right at home in a nature documentary. The video quality does show its age a bit, but hey, this was made at like 360p in 2004. I'd look crunchy and pixelated if I was made in... I like the focus on nature and the brief glimpse of life, death, and the food chain. We see herds of Aptonoth and Kelby at a watering hole, the brutality of Velociprey running down a young Aptonoth, with Rathalos swooping in to steal it. This is the reveal of the very first flagship monster of the series, and the swelling of proof of a hero alongside the King of the Skies revealing himself is pretty good. We don't see any hunters until the last third of the video, and even then they're not really the focus when on screen. All eyes are on Rathalos. Hell, when the hunters attack Rathalos, their weapons bounce off his tough hide. Rathalos is led into the line of fire of another hunter with a bowgun, and the muzzle flash becomes an inferno that reveals the game's title. I love this intro. I'm immediately hyped to sink my teeth into the experience. After some quick character creation, we're given a lovely sweeping camera shot of Kokoto Village, our home for the foreseeable future. Full disclosure, I already know a little bit about Kokoto because it's one of the 4 villages you return to in Generations Ultimate. In fact, a lot of my knowledge about older gen titles is kinda based on GU. I can't have a truly fresh experience with some of this stuff, but there's still a lot of enchanting things to discover in these games despite that. Moving inside the house, we find ourselves slumbering peacefully on the stiffest, most starched up blanket in existence. We can use this bed for saving the game, and the big chest off to the left is the item box where we'll be storing gear, consumables, monster parts, you name it. Right now it's empty. In fact, outside of our stylish underwear, all we have to our name is a sword and shield called the Hunter's Knife. The Hunter's Knife is the baseline weapon of the Ore Tree. We'll talk about weapon trees a lot more later on, just know for now that we can upgrade this to be more powerful and even turn it into different kinds of sword and shield depending on what monster parts we use. This applies to every other weapon type in the game too, great swords, lances, hammers, etc., but for now we'll stick with the sword and shield for our examples. Talking to the villagers who don't seem to mind our cheeks out, we can learn a lot of little tips about navigating the menus, the location of shops, and guidance on how to get started becoming a hunter. The village chief, this short old guy who proclaims himself to be the hero of Kokoto, yeah sure bud, wants us to start our career off on the right foot, so he gives us 1500 zenny to spend at the equipment shop. It's just enough to get a full set of leather gear and some green pants. My favorite part of this set is the leather helmet looking like a metal boonie cap. It reminds me of one of the marine character models in Halo 1. Looking like a productive member of society now, we return to the chief, who will be our point of contact for taking on quests, which are broken up in different levels noted by the number of stars, from 1 to 5. We have armor and a weapon now, but we're not a hunter yet. The Kokoto chief wants to test our mettle by sending us out into the effin' hills to get some raw meat. Hey, first quest in the entire series has you going out and doing some normal ass hunting to bring meat back to the village? I like it. This is more or less how the entirety of the 1-star quests are gonna go, acting as a gameplay tutorial for combat, gathering materials from the environment or fishing, cooking meat, and combining items to make other items. Blue mushroom plus herb equals potion and things like that. The biggest hurdle I'm gonna have to get over is probably gonna be the controls. The camera's on the D-pad, which might sound strange when you first hear it, but then you learn that your weapon swings are bound to the right stick and... I don't know why Capcom decided that the right stick was the best place to put weapon attacks. Maybe it has something to do with the game being presented much more like a simulator than an arcadey action fest. If I've learned one thing from my limited time with simulator games, it's that a focus on deliberate and thoughtful actions at a slower pace is always intended. Full disclosure, I am playing with an Xbox controller, so I'll be utilizing the Louvaine Big Claw technique for the duration of my playthrough. It's pretty familiar. I tabbed through my item wheel in Dark Souls the same way. The sword and shield has 3 attacks, which are performed by hitting different directions on the thumbstick. Down lets you perform a leaping slash, tapping up repeatedly gives you a set of rapid fire swings with a shield bash thrown in, and both left and right bust out this wide sweeping round slash. The tutorial hints that you can perform combo attacks with your weapons, but it doesn't really break down what this means. Technically, the rapid fire attack string on the sword and shield is already a combo. I wouldn't blame anyone if that's about as far as they thought about it. It seems pretty self-explanatory on the surface. The thing is, that's not the real combo. What the tutorial's trying to say is that if you do each of your weapon's attacks in a certain order, you can animation cancel them together into a seamless barrage of damage. Every attack, especially the leaping slash and round slash, has a pretty sizable amount of downtime recovery after the attack comes out. So what could the combo for sword and shield be? Here's the thing, I've already told you. Leaping slash, attack barrage, end with the round slash. Time it right and these attacks seamlessly flow into one another, with the only animation recovery coming at the end of the round slash. But on top of animation canceling attacks into each other, you can also get around the round slash recovery frames by dodge rolling at the end of the attack. After spending a little too much time playing with my sword in camp, it's time to head out to get the raw meat for our quest. Leaving the camp, we're greeted by another sweeping camera shot of the first zone, accompanied by a swelling reprise of Proof of a Hero. There's a herd of Aptonoth set against a large river, separating the playable area from the backdrop of this zone. Rolling hills and high cliffs against a pristine blue sky dotted with massive clouds. This shit right here? This is the good stuff. I think now is a pretty good moment for me to talk about one of my favorite things about pre-world Monster Hunter games, and that's the environments. The sense of scale in the level backdrops have always left me in awe. I've never been able to get past how majestic these zones tend to feel. To be clear, the play space of this zone is incredibly small. I can't physically walk across the river to the hundreds of Aptonoth grazing in the distance. I can't climb that mountain even though I can see it. That doesn't matter though. These backdrops are so masterfully crafted, blending both 2D assets, 3D geometry, and texture animation to create a ludicrous amount of scale and depth that make my hunter feel incredibly small in comparison. I mean, just look at how the cloud shadows sweep over the ridgeline in the background. It's a reinforcing punctuation of the declaration made when you finish making your character. Welcome to the world of Monster Hunter. The more modern Monster Hunter games, those being World, Rise, and Wilds, don't seem to have the same kind of scale represented like this, or at the least it's not as in your face. Larger playable areas, increasing graphical quality, and by extension resource demands means that the focus has to be put on the things immediately around the player. Higher quality textures, more complicated meshes, tons of tiny flora and fauna skittering around every inch of the screen to provide the illusion of a living, breathing world. I think another symptom of this issue is the open zone nature of the new games. You can seamlessly go from one area to the next, and in some cases see other areas from the one you're standing in. I booted up Wilds again and ran around some of the maps looking for grand sweeping scenic shots to figure out why I don't get the same feeling like I do with these old maps. And after taking a few screen caps, it hit me. Layering. There's a sense of scale to these backdrops that's undeniable, but they're all lacking in depth. Things that are meant to be incredibly far off in the distance look like they're super up close. At the furthest distance, everything occupies the same relative position. It made me think of something I'd seen while doom scrolling through YouTube Shorts at one point. The Disney's Tricks of Our Trade documentary detailed how Disney invented the multiplane camera to create depth and realism for environmental shots and animation, showing off the difference between zooming into a flat painting and that same painting after it had been separated into layers. Because the maps are seamless, for instance, you can see Ray Dow's nest from the base camp in the Windward Plains, there isn't any space for layering to create that depth. You can't place something massive way in the background if I'm meant to get to it without hitting a loading screen. As a result, there's something lost about the world around my character. In making the world more open, it feels more closed in than ever. It feels like a level in a video game instead of an area to let your imagination roam. Let me give a real-world example. I went to Cortez in Colorado on vacation with my family a few years back, and as part of that we went to see some of the ancient Native American villages that had been dug into the cliff walls. The picture I took doesn't do the view justice, but seeing the complex dug into the canyon wall from the other side of the canyon, a place where 100 people lived at one point, it was breathtaking. That feeling's the same one I get whenever I look at a lot of the zones in these old maps. Despite the more primitive geometry, blurrier textures, small playable area, it feels real. A few weeks back, I was sitting in a Discord call with some people I know. We were talking about Monster Hunter, and one of the people in the group was pretty astonished when I said, and I think I'm quoting myself exactly here, the open area design of modern Monster Hunters is dog shit. They reacted incredulously, saying something along the lines of, "What, you like having to walk through loading screens and track monsters with paintballs?" And when I said yes, the response was, "I'm sorry, bud." I didn't really know how to feel about that reaction. Part of hunting involves preparation, tracking, patience. It seems pretty obvious to me. The game's called Monster Hunter, not Omniscient Fent Addict RKO's 30 monsters in an hour. Look, I don't have any nostalgia for old Monster Hunters. I didn't play them as a kid. I'm pretty sure I was like 25 by the time I played World for the first time, and before that I'd tried the Generations demo for maybe 10 minutes. Gen Ultimate is the only old school Monster Hunter I've played up to this point, and so far it's my favorite. It's totally possible to make changes and updates to the systems and gameplay while still retaining the core Monster Hunter experience. The difference between how smooth it is to control your character between Monster Hunter 1 and Generations is night and day, for instance. Not to mention the different attacks and abilities afforded to you by the hunting styles, added weapons, quality of life improvements like the Farm and Freedom Unite, or sending your palicos out on missions to bring back resources. Changing the fundamentals of the game, how it's played, is where I think we have a problem. Less focus on resource gathering, hunters moving like DBZ characters with most monsters unable to keep up, almost no risk of failure on high commitment moves now that you can aim a true charge slash or super amped element discharge. Not to mention you never need to learn the maps because your sacred GPS always has your destination on lock. Did you know in 300 hours of Wilds, I have yet to even cook a steak? Why would I need to? Rations get handed to me 10 at a time between every few hunts anyways. I don't hate modern Monster Hunter, but it doesn't grip me the same way. Some people would say I sound bitter. I'd say old gen is just that much better. Okay, mini rant over. I'm gonna do my best to not constantly compare old and new Monster Hunter going forward. I want to keep my focus on the entry in the series that the video's about. Having Aptonoth be the first creature you hunt is pretty smart. They're docile herbivores that let you get up as close as you want, which will let a player get to grips with using their weapon in a real combat encounter. Speaking of combat, positioning is very important, especially which way you're looking when you swing. Once you start an attack, you're locked into the animation and direction you're facing until your recovery animations end. No adjusting mid-swing or between swings unless you stop attacking completely. Your positioning and timing can make the difference between hitting the monster and getting hit by the monster. I got clubbed on the head a few times despite how easy they are. Good God, that's a lot of blood. Oh, hey look, while I've been yapping about the environment and hunting Aptonoth, my stamina bar's gotten shorter. I swear, this doesn't usually happen to me. It's brisk today. This is Monster Hunter's hunger mechanic. Over the course of a quest, a hunter's max stamina will passively decrease. This means less time sprinting, fewer dodge rolls, and less potential for guarding against attacks. Pretty handy then that we're given a couple rations in the supply chest back at camp. Chew them down, flex to show off how strong and cool we are, and our stamina bar's back in shape. We'll be doing this flex, it's called a potion flex, whenever using consumable items in the game, including healing potions. You're completely locked into the animation just like with attacks, so you have to pick and choose your moment to heal during a fight, adding a bit of tactical thinking to any exchange with a monster. This stuff's nothing new to me. These mechanics have more or less stayed the same throughout the series. If anything, they're just a bit clunkier or have different timings. Finding items is kind of interesting. There's no prompts for item nodes, so you've got to keep your eyes peeled. These are all fixed locations, so once you find them, it's pretty easy to remember because you're going to be gathering a lot if you want to survive. Look for stuff that isn't just tall grass, like if there's some berries or a mushroom, some kind of decoration. Crouching before gathering makes the animation play out faster because you're not waiting for your hunter to crouch down and stand up again. Combining items has a chance of failure based on the difficulty of the craft, or will just outright fail if what you're trying to mix together can't combo into another item. You can get a better percentage chance of succeeding at a combination if you have some special books in your inventory, but we're nowhere near buying them. Clearing out those 1-star quests gives us access to our next urgent quest and the beginning of the 2-star quests. This request, called Your First Monster Hunt, is posted by one of the village guards. There's small blue monsters called Velociprey that are attacking the village's children, and a hunter needs to go out and handle it. Why doesn't the guard handle it himself, you may ask? After all, he's a guard of the village. What else would he be doing? The answer's pretty straightforward. He's not a hunter. He doesn't have access to the same equipment that enables us to fight monsters. As simple as some hunter weapons might be, sword and shield, lance, hammer, etc., these weapons are based on reverse-engineered relics of an ancient civilization purpose-built for fighting wyverns. But because they tend to be kind of fuck-off huge, I mean seriously, even the sword and shield is massive for what it is, you need special training and certification to use them. Village guards are gonna have like your standard spears or pikes and some leather padding for armor more than likely. Alright, time to save the kids. Out into the field we go, gotta find the Velociprey. I wandered around for a little bit trying to guess where they might be, and I didn't find them until I headed toward Area 8. Look, I would have been like 10 when Monster Hunter came out. Jurassic Park scared the shit out of me, and this intro totally would have too. Fighting one would have been bad enough, but the 3 it tosses at you immediately would have had me turning my PlayStation off. Hell, when I was jumping down to try and fight them, one clipped me midair with a jump attack. Clever girl. The big thing to remember with Velociprey is while they're described as being agile, their ability to move is kinda shit. They don't have any attacks to the sides or behind them, so they have to do this little hopping turn if you're not directly in front of them. From there, they've got like claws, bites. They mostly like to try and do this leaping attack, so as long as you position well and flank around them, they go down pretty easy. I'll tell you what isn't easy though, fucking carving these fuckers if any of the others are still alive. Once you slay one, you've got like 15 seconds before the body despawns to get in there and get your carve. I got a total of 1 carve on the last Velociprey. Yay! Alrighty, 2-star quests. What are we gonna... and it's more item fetching quests. Wow, slow burn, huh? And there's only up to 5-star quests in the village. village. I guess the difference here is now I'm doing tasks for the people in the village instead of just getting my training from the chief. The first one comes from someone named the Loving Sibling, who wants to send some special mushrooms to her brother in a nearby town. I picked some of these up while gathering in another quest, so this one went by pretty quickly. Raid the Wyvern's Nest. Someone in the village is sick, and the village doctor has tasked us with acquiring the one thing that'll cure them, a wyvern egg. I don't think I need to remind you, but at this point we've only seen one wyvern since we started the game, and that was Rathalos in the opening cinematic. I already know where the nest is. It's up in Area 5. I could probably make quick work of the quest by climbing up the cliffs in Area 6 and entering the nest from the set. Oh fuck. So instead of making it easy by only needing to do some careful climbing, Capcom wants me to loop all the way around from the north and loop all the way back the same direction instead. Good. Can't be too bad, right? I just gotta carry the egg and hope Rathalos doesn't notice, right? That's it. Everything dies today. I gotta tell you, this stamina bar doesn't buy you much sprinting time. It looks super long, but it drains faster than my bank account when rent comes due. Definitely didn't help that hunger mechanics reduced it while I was in the process of carrying the egg either. I'm starting to see how fucking awful the camera is too. Maneuvering past Rathalos while also trying to keep him in view or keeping it from going nuts the second it comes near a wall is just a tiny bit challenging. I did get kinda lucky because on the run where I successfully delivered the egg, I didn't even see Rathalos a single time. Lesson learned for the future though. On egg delivery quests, I should probably slay any small monsters between me and the nest. Next up, we gotta get Kelby horns because the decorations on bowguns have always been made from them and the armory's running low. It's kind of a neat little detail. It helps ground me in the world even if it might be something so small. Not much to say for this quest honestly. Kelby are these deer or gazelle-like critters and they're really skittish. Get 5 horns and turn them in. The final 2-star quest on the list involved me needing to cook 5 well-done steaks for the village chef. It took me a while to figure out the timing, but now I can do well-done steaks nearly perfect every time. Back to the village for our urgent quest, and we're being tasked to hunt down a velocidrome. What's a velocidrome? It's a velociprey, but bigger. Specifically, it's the leader of a pack of velociprey. Bigger and meaner with a bright orange crest on its head. Otherwise, it's not all that different. Same agility, same attacks, always accompanied by a posse of 2 or 3 velociprey that follow it between areas. Turns out that when we hunted those velociprey earlier, the drome took notice and it's none too happy. Velocidrome isn't a challenging monster per se, but aspects of the quest it's in make things a little tough sometimes. Like I said, it has a posse that follows it around and it can call more if any are slain. Additionally, almost every area the velocidrome goes to can have upwards of 4 more velociprey hanging around, so if you're not careful, you'll get caught in the blender and find your health disappearing pretty quickly. This time I decided to take the greatsword for a spin, figuring the wide arcing swings and heavy damage would be useful. Unlike later games, the greatsword doesn't have any charge levels, just a series of swings that can chain into each other indefinitely. Kinda neat. It's almost a blend between the base greatsword moveset and what would eventually become the longsword's gameplay philosophy, positioning well to get in a series of effective strikes instead of trying to line up a level 3 charge slash and missing when the monster decides to move 2 inches to the right. There's also some greatswords in the weapon trees that look like long swords. The greatsword's pretty nice for slapping him around, especially after blinding him and his goons with a flash bomb and getting a few swings in. The moments where he gets sent flying are really satisfying, and then the flash bomb wears off and I start getting mobbed like it's JoJo's Part 5. Sometimes all these fuckers will start hitting each other trying to get at me, which is really funny, and now that I'm fighting a quote-unquote real monster, I end up flubbing the controls a little bit in some spots. It's so instinctive to want to turn the camera with the right stick that there were times where I was stumbling around drawing and sheathing my weapon until I remembered the camera was on the D-pad. It is funny thinking back on it on the other side of the game now. I built up the muscle memory, and sometimes when I'm playing Wilds, I'll try to move the camera with the D-pad and get confused. Something else I started to notice now that the heat of battle is upon me, the foliage in some of the areas is a little thick. Like, look at this. I found Velocidrome in Area 10, and these trees and shrubs block so much line of sight, it's actually a danger to be lingering in there for very long. It's an obstacle to navigate, and it adds a little bit of texture to your interactions in the area, and here it's used sparingly, so I'm not super bothered by it.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
The hit stop in this game is wild with Greatsword. I hit a monster and just freeze in place for almost a full second before the animation follows through. I love good hit stop. It magnifies the impact of the hit, and let me tell you, this is some high quality handmade shit right here. Eventually, this oversized lizard takes a fall, and I savor my victory by I got one carve, yay! Plus side, monsters like Velocidrome only have 2 carves on them, so it's not like I missed out on a ton of loot. One hopped up blue raptor out of the way, and we're a 3-star hunter. A few of these quests are repeats of ones we've done before. Gather special mushrooms in the new jungle map, slay Velociprey, steal a wyvern egg, another Velocidrome quest in addition to the one used as the urgent quest. The new ones on the list are Liver of Legend, Jungle Menace, and slay the Yonkutku. Jungle Menace is also a Yonkutku hunt, the difference between the two being the location. Jungle Menace takes place in the jungle, and slay the Yonkutku is in the forest and hills. It was around this point that I made a lance to see what it could do, and I was really surprised to find out the lance charge was present. I genuinely thought this thing was a poke hop for years, but here's one of the coolest moves in Monster Hunter present from the beginning. I'm really learning a lot from visiting the original game. Hammer has its Beyblade spin too, which is super awesome. Next up, Jungle Menace. An envoy from a village in the jungle seeks a hunter to slay a Yonkutku because it's attacking their village. This'll be our first actual large monster hunt. Velocidrome's more like a mid-sized monster. I know kinda what to expect with Yonkutku. He's a big dumb bird lizard filled with hate. He charges, he tail spins, he lobs fireballs, he pecks the shit out of you. All that good stuff. The thing I consistently, routinely, nearly always forget is how fucking hard his parts are. This seems as good a time as any to talk about monster hit zones and weapon sharpness. If you're expecting a long explanation breaking down math formulas, don't worry, I'm not going to get deep into damage calculations because it doesn't matter that much for this video. There will be a small example later on, but again, doesn't really matter that much. Alright, so simplest first is weapon sharpness. Every melee weapon, yes, even hammer, comes with a sharpness gauge that maxes out at a certain point on a multicolored scale. Red is the lowest level of sharpness, and purple is the highest. Each section of color a weapon has access to can be a different length, and certain weapons may have a lower maximum sharpness depending on factors like having higher base damage than weapons of the same rarity. Each tier of sharpness increases the damage multiplier of your weapon's strikes and influences whether or not you'll bounce when hitting certain parts. Using the quest I'm on currently, I brought a yellow sharpness lance to fight Yonkutku, and while I can hit his wings and head just fine, my attacks bounce off of places like his legs and body because they're too tough. I don't know what determines a monster part's toughness. As far as I can find, that kind of thing isn't really documented. I fought Yonkutku enough in Generations Ultimate to know that a weapon with green sharpness is enough to get through his hide though. We'll come back to that in a bit. Let me go over monster hit zones. The table on screen is Yonkutku's hit zone chart. In the first column, you can see each of Kutku's different parts: head, neck, back, stomach, tail, wing, and foot. In the first row, there are symbols denoting types of damage. From left to right, blade, blunt, shot, fire, water, thunder, and dragon. The numbers in each box represent the percentage of damage that the hit zone takes before any other factors like hunter buffs, sharpness multipliers, and things like that. If each of our weapon types would do 10 damage on a hit, let's say to the head for example, then cutting weapons would do 5 damage, hammer would do 8, and bowgun shots would do the full 10. If this were multiplayer, a hammer user would want to stick on Kutku's head as much as possible since that's where their best damage output will be. Plus, in future titles, blunt weapons can build up stun on a monster to knock them over and create a massive opening to really lay on the damage. Cutting weapons and bowguns would find their best focus on places like the stomach and wings, with bowguns also dealing the most damage to Kutku's feet. Shot damage is really effective against his head, but since hunters can trip each other up with attacks, you don't want to risk hitting your hammerer and stun locking them into taking a hit from the monster. There is an exception with Lance's damage, but we'll cover that later. Ooh, what a mouthful. If you didn't understand all of that, don't worry. My weapon's not sharp enough to penetrate Kutku's hide, and that's leaving me open to taking avoidable damage while I'm stuck in this recoiling animation after bouncing. I ended up abandoning the quest. I was out of heals, got carded twice, and as much as I could probably struggle through with all the bouncing, it wasn't fun knowing the solution to the problem and slamming my head against a brick wall anyway. I also needed a bit of a mental reset on this one. The jungle map is pretty and all, but it's also pretty dense. It's really difficult to see anything going on through all the PNGs of trees and vines everywhere, and Jan Kutku's harem of Velociprey really weren't helping my struggles. Oh yeah, that's another thing about these old games. Monsters hate you. It doesn't matter who, what, or why. If you're in the area, then everything's locking onto you like I lock onto Korean fried chicken. Seriously, even the normally passive Mosswine was taking shots at me after getting hit by Kutku, and I didn't even hit it with my lance. I decided to shift focus, progress other quests, which leads us to Liver of Legend. A foreign trader has a buyer lined up for water and sand wyvern livers and wants us to head out into the desert to go get 3 of them. Simple enough, right? You would be so wrong. Welcome to the desert, our primary introduction to temperature mechanics. Some areas of some maps are either too hot or too cold for your hunter to withstand alone, which means you gotta bring either a hot or cool drink to insulate yourself against the effects of the temperature. Too cold and your max stamina depletes much faster. Too hot and your health drains slowly. So who are we getting these livers from? These abominations of time wasting and tests of my fucking patience are Cephalos, sandfish with legs that swim really fast and do everything they can to avoid paying attention to you. That is, until they decide to pay attention to you and do some sort of attack before swimming off again. They almost never decide to surface on their own, and the quest supplies us with a couple sonic bombs, but I wasn't very good with them. I'll spare you the pain I went through. I abandoned this one too after trying to struggle through it. I'm gonna need to come back with more cool drinks and sonic bombs of my own. I slayed 1 Cephalos after like 12 minutes. These things are small monsters, mind you. It's the hit and run they do that makes them hard to deal with. Their total health is about half of a Velocidrome. They really don't take that much damage to go down. I've definitely hit a wall here. It looks like some gear upgrades are in order. The only quests I can do without significant preparation or suffering are the 3-star Velociprey and Velocidrome ones, so I settled in for a bit of a grind. I'm gonna need a weapon with high enough sharpness to overcome Kutku's toughness, which means I need materials and money. I've been getting a lot of Velociprey parts from carves and quests. I can use those to pad out my wallet as I'm upgrading my weapon. Relying on quest payouts is gonna take too long otherwise. Upgrading my Hunter's Knife to a Hunter's Knife Plus with 1 iron ore and 660 of my 724 Zenny gets me to a sliver of green sharpness, but unless I want to stop every few hits to resharpen, I'm gonna need something better. Both upgrades, the Serpent's Knife and Hunter's Dagger, return the sharpness meter back to yellow, and this is where I decided I was just gonna look at weapon trees to see what my best course of action was going to be. Monster Hunter as a series does a lot of general obfuscation with mechanics. The newer games have the weapon trees laid out in an actual tree so you can see what comes next and get a general idea about how a branch might progress. Old gen titles though, nah. You get to see the next upgrade of the weapon and that's it. I need green sharpness. Both time and Zenny are at a premium if I want to finish this video in a timely manner. I did not in fact finish this video in a timely manner. This is where I found out that green sharpness is actually the highest level of sharpness in base MonHun 1. The G expansion introduces higher tiers up to white, but we won't be there for a while yet. Looking at every weapon tree, it looks like the highest level of green sharpness I can get in the quickest time frame is going to be the Assassin's Dagger, 3 upgrades away from my current Hunter's Knife Plus. I'm going to need 9 iron ore and 9 earth crystals plus 5,340 Zenny, which is fucking expensive where I'm at right now. The iron ore is easy enough to get. There's 3 mining nodes in the Forest and Hills map where we'll be grinding Velocidrome and Velociprey parts for money, and you have between a 27 and 40% chance of mining iron depending on which node you're at. Earth crystals are a little tougher, between 8 and 18%, but with all the money I'm gonna have to grind, we've got plenty of time. I found out partway through farming that starting at 3-star quests, the list will start rotating. There's a total of 8 quests in 3-star, but only 5 ever show at a time. Quests will rotate when you return from a hunt or load your save. This was either a design constraint or intentional. I could see it being intentional. To save, you have to sleep in your bed, so it's almost like every time you load your game, it's a new day and the quests rotate to reflect that. All in all, it was about 2 hours of grinding to get the Assassin's Dagger with its big chunk of green sharpness goodness, and that was with me going a bit inefficiently. The next upgrade for this thing needs Gypceros parts, and that rubber chicken ain't in 3-star, so this is the best I'll have for a little while. The sharpness gauge is pulsing now. I like when it pulses. Oh baby, this was worth it. Now that I'm not bouncing off of him with every swing, the hardest part of dealing with Jan Kutku is the rest of the fucking jungle and the fact that he can knock me on my ass just by turning to look at me. Otherwise, I cut through him like a hot knife through butter. This is good. This is progress. I hit a wall, I overcame the wall. I get a fuckload of screamers in the quest rewards, which I need in order to craft sonic bombs so I can unearth the Cephalos on the liver quest. I grinded Jan Kutku and Velociprey quests off and on over the next week, grabbed a few armor upgrades in the form of Kutku's gloves and belt and high metal legs. It was a lot of running around the first few areas of forest and hills, but looking this cute takes effort, even if that effort is climbing the same mountain over and over and over. Started off the next session ready to go, maybe feeling like I'd overprepared, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't get enough of the game. It might sound like I'm glazing it, even though I've done a lot of complaining so far, but the experience, the hardship, the vibes, they're all immaculate, and I found myself every day trying to find a spare moment to squeeze another quest or two in. I can totally see why the game got popular despite all the jank and the just one more quest through line that led the series to the PSP. First on our list for this session is the second 3-star Jan Kutku quest. This time it's in the forest and hills, showcasing how monsters can show up in different locales. Had enough materials to make myself a new hat and spent some time crafting sonic bombs to take on Liver of Legend again. I'm mad. Not at the game, mad at myself. This shit was so easy compared to that first attempt where I was floundering around for 20 minutes, and I only slayed one Cephalos then. Seriously, I was done with this quest in a little over 5 minutes, and I didn't need to craft more sonic bombs. Like, I brought the materials and the combo books that increase your chance of success on crafting, and I didn't even need them. Preparation, patience, intention. I needed to keep that in mind going forward. Alright, 4-star urgent quest time. The Land Shark. The chief of the town in the oasis needs someone to handle a monster eating their pack animals. Enter the Cephadrome. It's just a really big Cephalos, I'm gonna be real. All the same movements and tactics, just a different color and so tall that it's hard to hit anything but the legs when it's above ground. It's one of the monsters that has the infamous atomic hip check with its crazy hitbox, but I didn't get clipped by it that often. In fact, there were times where I didn't get hit when I definitely should have. There's a lot of those moments that I notice, especially when it has to do with jumping attacks. Plenty of times on quests where something like a Velocidrome will absolutely collide with me, enough to physically move my character, but I don't take any damage or get tossed around. Hitboxes in Monster Hunter are a suggestion at best. Not much to say on Cephadrome. Stick to the edges of the areas it's in because it swims in a big old circle, toss sonic bombs to get him out of the ground, and go crazy on the damage while avoiding the hip check and rotating tail swipes. You'll need green sharpness too. I think the tail and legs are the hard parts, but don't quote me on that. His neck, back, and stomach take the most damage from each weapon type. Now that we're in 4-star hunter territory, things are starting to ramp up. There's a total of 10 quests, not including the Cephadrome we just did, and more than a few of them are repeats. Special mushrooms in the jungle, allegedly for a Lady Gourmet's dog. The same gourmet who wants 3 herbivore eggs from the desert. God, fuck, end my suffering now. The village doctor's treating a sick villager and needs 2 wyvern eggs this time. Not suspicious at all. I swear the design of these egg quests is just outright mean. It's like the designer woke up on the wrong side of the bed and wanted to make it your problem. Like, for example, in a few of the Forest and Hills egg quests, Area 1 starts out with Aptonoth in it. Nothing unusual, Aptonoth always hang out in this area. You go through all the effort of grabbing the egg, carefully bringing it back to the camp, load into Area 1, and oops! All Velociprey! Jeez, it's just cruel. Sure, I get it, you don't want the egg quest to go too quickly, but this kind of thing is just antagonistic design. I totally get why hunters bitch about egg quests, and I see why they took a backseat in future games. Your character's reduced movement and inability to dodge more or less guarantee a dropped egg in this situation. I don't know when the swap happens, but I'd be willing to bet the Velociprey don't show up here until you've picked up the egg. From what I can tell, monsters in each area won't respawn if you slay them after grabbing an egg, so at minimum you need to go all the way to the nest, get egg, drop egg, then go all the way through each area you plan to carry it and make sure everything dies and doesn't respawn. In the most uncharitable way I can think of, it's nothing but a time waster. That said, you can get a glut of small monster parts on these quests too. Even then, the slay X amount of Y quests exist with the same rewards, so yeah, why are egg quests a thing? Outside of the fantasy hunting simulator side of the game, they don't really do much to break up the gameplay. They're kinda tedious and in cases like the desert, straight up up annoying. Initially, I wasn't gonna talk about the desert egg delivery quest called Bring Me Eggs, because I've covered a good amount of stuff about these quests already. I think I've gotten the gist of things across. This quest though, this quest. Despite my gripes about them, the egg quests aren't the bane of my existence. They're tedious, a little mean-spirited, but manageable. Bring Me Eggs is the first quest I've run across in this game that feels unpleasant to do even when you're doing well. I could understand the quest being the way it is if you needed to deliver 1 egg. Maybe I could let 2 slide, but this quest wants 3 eggs out of you. Let me backtrack a bit. The Lady Gourmand wants us to head out to the desert to get 3 herbivore eggs from a nest of Apsaros located in Area 8. The safest route I've found is through Areas 7 and 2. 10, 4, and 1 have respawning monsters like Genprey and Apsaros and are just a bit too tight to try and navigate in my experience. Fuck Apsaros, by the way. Watching them lock on and slowly lumber toward me while I'm in the middle of a hunt is so goddamn enraging. Velociprey clipping me from off screen is annoying, but Apsaros moves slowly enough you have time to register where they're coming from and have this no, don't come any closer kind of moment. I didn't do shit to you, man. Why you gotta be so aggro? Areas 7 and 2 both contain Cephalos as usual, but also have spawns of Genprey present. Funnily enough, the Cephalos are going to be the least of our worries when it comes to transporting the eggs. First things first, you're going to want to bring cool drinks. The quest supplies too, but you'll need extra. You can pick them up in Kokoto Village for 100 zenny a pop. Next up is Power Juice. This drink essentially gives you infinite stamina for 3 minutes and increases your max stamina by 25, the same amount as a ration or rare state. Bring 5 of these. Ideally, you'll only need 3, unless you do what I did and get all the way back to camp with an egg and then bump the stick, drawing your weapon and splattering your hard work all over the ground. To make Power Juice, you'll need a catalyst, which you get by combining a bitterbug and honey. You then take that catalyst, combine it with a rare steak, which is made when you pull your meat off the barbecue spit too early. Make sure you've got all 3 combo books in your inventory too. That 20% extra crafting chance can make all the difference. I'd bring some extra steak along too, just in case. Once you've done that and are on the quest, take a cool drink and beeline it to Area 8. Don't bother slaying anything yet. Weave around the Genprey outside the entry to Area 8, get inside the cave, pick up an egg, drop it on the ground. This might seem strange, but the monster spawns don't change until you've picked up an egg. Head back outside and you notice the Genprey in Area 7 are much more spread out now. Slay them. Don't bother slaying the Genprey in Area 2. Bafflingly defying every other egg quest so far, they specifically respawn there, but will stay gone in Area 7. Head back into Area 8 and slay the Apsaros. Don't carve them. Even though they're a pretty good source for medium monster bones, if they're carved and their body disappears, another one will spawn in through the cave entrance. Before grabbing an egg, pop another cool drink, eat a ration, and then shove down a Power Juice. Grab the egg and
run.
Hold down that run button and don't let go. Exit Area 8, stick to the right side, hugging the wall as close as you dare, and keep an eye on the Cephalos swimming about. Most of the time they'll just pass by, but occasionally you'll get one that feels froggy enough to jump. Stay evasive and it should be fine. Once you're in Area 2, keep hugging the right side. You'll have been spotted by a Genprey and it's gonna come after you. Weave around the trees to try and break up its path. Zigzag a bit so it can't keep a straight line of sight of you. The last thing you want is to be blasted by a leaping attack. It's not the only one you have to worry about though. There will be 1 or 2 more in front of you that you'll need to evade around. Head for and into Area 6. Once it's loaded, turn and leave immediately. There's a Links right at the entrance who would love to punish you if you're loitering. Why did we run into Area 6 and back out? Because loading into the area resets where the Genprey were standing, and now they're further away from you. Keep hugging the right and heading toward the camp. Ideally, the closest Genprey will be a bit slow to notice you, and you'll be far enough away that it can't catch up. Your Power Juice is gonna run out just before you reach this stone arch. Don't panic, just get through to the camp. After that, deliver the egg, revel in your victory, and realize you have to make that exact same run 2 more times. I can't be the only one who finds this ridiculous. I think I hate this quest. 1 egg in the desert with respawning monsters would be tough enough, let alone 2, but 3? Oh, yeah, I was not a happy rabbit. That aside, the rest of the quests involve slaying Vespoids in the jungle. They're these big flying bugs that can paralyze you occasionally. Most of the time, if you hit them with a weapon, they'll shatter into pieces, but if you grab a bow gun and shoot them with 1 poison ammo, they'll die and you can carve them for parts. I'm gonna need at least 1 piece of Vespoid armor later on, so I'll have to come back to this before moving to the multiplayer hub. Let's see, what else? Oh, we've got two subspecies of Velociprey and their associated pack leaders. We have Genprey and Gendrome, the sassy orange subspecies. These guys hang out in the desert and have paralytic toxin in their teeth and claws. I mentioned them in the egg quest. Otherwise, they've got the exact same moves as Velociprey. This marks like the third monster so far that does paralysis. Vespoid, Cephalos, now Genprey, kind of weird. For spicy, we have Ioprey and Iodrome in the jungle. I think these are my favorite of the three. They do the same things as Gen and Veloci with the addition of a poison spit. They also just look the coolest out of the three. They have this poison dart frog thing going on with their hide and coloration, and Iodrome's got this sick axebeak crest going on. Super cool, super fun, probably my favorite small monster. Another Velociprey quest, slaying 15 of them this time. Population must be out of control. If we only do each quest once, that's like 28 of them slain in the forest and hills alone, and that's not counting the 5 to 8 you probably slay as collateral during each Velocidrome quest, or however many might get caught in the crossfire while you hunt Kutku in the jungle, or the amount of path clearing done during egg delivery quests. Speaking of, we have a Kutku capture quest. New mechanic, let's dig in a bit. When it comes to hunting monsters, you don't always have to slay them. You can just trap them. This can be done for any kind of reason, academic study, relocation, things like that. In this case, a scholar wants to study the Kutku, and we're more than capable to oblige. It's not quite as simple as dropping a trap and waiting for the monster to fall in though. The tranquilizer pods we use to knock the monster out only work if their health is below a certain threshold. So to successfully capture the monster, we have to beat the tar out of it and get it into a weakened state without slaying it. How do you know it's weak enough? If you see the monster limping, that's your signal. This is the biggest telltale sign that you can trap it, but be careful. It's very likely that once the monster starts limping, it's going to try to run or fly away to whichever area is its nest so it can sleep and recover health. Kutku's a little devious though. In the forest and hills, its nest is in area 5, but it'll fly off to area 4 first, walk a few steps, then immediately take off again for area 5. Wild bait and switch, but I'm not about to fall for it. If you're fast enough, you can get it when it lands in area 4, but be careful. I wait to enter the nest until I see his icon on the map shift from red to blue. This lets me know he's not aggressive any longer, and in this case has fallen asleep. It's as simple as walking into the cave, setting the trap at his feet, which triggers after a moment, and hitting him with 2 of the tranquilizer pods. Each pod will do 80 tranquilizer status to a monster, and at 100 the monster falls asleep. Simple as, quest complete. I realize I've spent all this time in this video and I haven't even covered the map or paintballs yet. Alright, so usually you can only see yourself on the map, designated by this arrow, and you can only see the full map if you have the map item in your inventory. This is always in the supply chest at the start of a quest. Because I can only see myself, I have no way of knowing where a monster may be at any given point unless I slap them with a paintball once I find them, or drink a psycho serum to reveal their location for a few moments. The paintball marks the monster on the map for 10 minutes and tells me things like what area they're in, if they're alert or calm, flying or grounded, and which way they're facing. It's all very useful information because some monsters can dart back and forth between areas, and it can take a while to track them down again if you don't already have an intimate knowledge of the places they frequent. Alright, eggs delivered, bugs swatted, fuck-ass chicken captured, lizard population reduced. What do they have in mind for the urgent quest up to 5-star? Oh, really? It's finally time. That's right, baby. After all the times he pops up in other quests as an obstacle, we're ready to take on the King of the Skies, and his name is Rathalos. Where do I even begin? Alright, so I really thought I was ready. I did some preparation for the hunt beforehand, right? I upgraded some of my armor, mostly Ioprey gear, which had me feeling a certain kind of way on my social media. I also went through the effort of getting a great sword and hammer prepped just in case my sword and shield wouldn't cut it. The only thing I was lacking was a bit of item preparation. Things like potions and mega potions, barrel bombs, that sort of thing. Didn't need it, I thought. I've hunted Rathalos 1,000 times in other games. He couldn't possibly be a challenge here. Overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. 5 hours. I spent 5 hours trying to get a single quest completion, and this flying pain in my ass rinsed me so thoroughly I started to understand why people don't like the Wraths. Maybe a little harsh. I still like Rathalos a lot, but this Rathalos is fucking infuriating. To start, Jan Kutku and Rathalos share a solid 80% of their moveset. Tailspin, running charge into belly flop, feinting a charge into a bite attack, this thing they do where they lift off in the air to hover for a bit, and and then come back down. Monsters tend to share skeletons and rigging for animations, so sometimes they'll have similar movements and attacks with some variation thrown in. Like here, both monsters have this flap backwards that causes air pressure to flinch me, but Rathalos launches a fireball at the ground as well. I went into this hunt with Rathalos a bit overconfident. Like I said, I've hunted him tons of times previously. I have a pretty solid knowledge of his moves. I'd probably take a few hits, cart once or twice, but ultimately slay him and move on to 5-star quests in the village within an hour or two. Nope, not only is he fast, but he hits like a truck. More than a few times I got stun locked to death by his moves chaining together or bad positioning on my part. It also doesn't help that a few places on the map he tends to frequent are full of velociprey or felines just waiting to get their grubby paws all over my items. Not to mention the camera issues are even more prevalent when you're pinned against a wall by Rathalos' big body. I figured my sword and shield wasn't going to be able to reach a lot of his parts. He's just a bit too tall for me to hit anything other than his legs. He has way more instances of air pressure that can flinch while he's hovering and landing, so my windows for attack are pretty limited, and he doesn't tend to stand around gormlessly like Jan Kutku when it forgets how to breathe. The most frustrating part of fighting Rathalos has to be how often he hops up into the air though. Whether it's hovering and landing, hovering to shoot off 3 fireballs, or just flying off to one zone to land, stand around for 30 seconds, or just long enough for me to get to the zone and then fly off to another area. He doesn't stay still, and I haven't had any success getting him out of the air with flash bombs, let alone flashing him while he's on the ground. The most frustrating part of his kit has to be this strafing run though. Rathalos will take off into the sky and circle for what feels like 15 to 20 seconds before lining up and diving down with his talons. I don't know what it is that makes Rathalos like this move so much, but I've had hunts where he would do this 2 or 3 times in a row before then taking off for another area on the map. The goofiest part of the whole thing is that terrain can influence his trajectory, so a cliffside or a tree will keep him way up in the air away from you during the dive. You can see this best represented in Area 9, which is surrounded by high trees and small cliffs. He literally cannot hit you in this area if he tries to use this move, so you're left standing around or dodging felines while you're waiting for him to touch back down. To contrast this, I found out Jan Kutku also has this move, but I've only seen it happen once in the close to 100 times I hunted it while farming materials in Zenny to prep for Rathalos. I don't know how or why it decided to, but it happened when I hit it with a greatsword swing while it was descending. It didn't even touch the ground, it just took off and started circling. By the end of this session, it was clear I needed to reevaluate my plan. If I wasn't getting triple carded, I was timing out the quest. It felt like I'd hit another wall, so I got to grinding. Just for reference, when I went into hunting Rathalos, my save file was at 30 hours. By the time I took him down, I was at around 59 hours. Now, that sounds like a lot, but most of that time was spent farming, working on getting a few more weapons up to snuff. I went back and forth on what weapon I should try to tackle him with, so I prepared a few different ones. Alongside my Dragon Agito greatsword, I made the Vile Serpent Blade, a greatsword made from Velocidrome parts that did less damage than the Dragon Agito, but has more green sharpness. This would mean more hits on Rathalos before needing to think about sharpening. I really don't want to be animation locked bouncing off of him when he can whip out a charge or tailspin on frame 1. For Lance, I ended up focusing on 2 weapons, and you'll see why. The first is the Barbaroi Tusk in the Bone Tree and the Babel Spear in the Iron Tree. The primary material we need for the Barbaroi Tusk is large monster bones. At the moment, I can't hunt any monsters that have these on their carve drop table, so I have to resort to quest rewards. My best bet right now is to farm the Jan Kutku capture quest, which has a 5% chance to give me large bones as part of the quest rewards. This quest takes place in the Forest and Hills, which has a mining node in Area 5, the spot where Kutku makes its nest. This mining node has a 10% chance to drop Macalite with every swing, which is the primary material needed for the Babel Spear. You see where I'm going with this? Since both primary materials have a really low drop chance in these village quests, I might as well work on both and see which one I can finish first. I didn't keep count of how many times I did this quest, but by the end I had a pretty good route going, and I was so confident in dealing with Jan Kutku that I could run up to it, flail around with a greatsword, and have it captured in around 5 minutes. I finished the Barbaroi Tusk first, and it wasn't even close. Mining nodes seem to have a randomly determined amount of times you can hit them, so there were plenty of quests where I'd run up to the node, get one item, and find out it was depleted on the second swing. The Barbaroi Tusk isn't even the end of its tree, but to finish it off and turn it into the Ogre Tusk, I'd need Mega Demon Drugs, which I don't have access to yet. I also wanted to see what I could do to ease some of the issues I was having with Sword and Shield. I haven't touched on it much, but Greatsword and Hammer, while slow and high damaging, could ignore some wind pressure via their attacks. Greatsword's swings and Hammer's charging won't be interrupted so long as you can get your timing and positioning right. You can get a hit or two off on a monster descending to the ground without getting flinched. Sword and Shield doesn't really have that benefit. Sure, I can block the air pressure and recover from it faster, but I'll be lucky to get a hit in before Rathalos starts doing anything, which really hurts the damage potential for a weapon designed to get many small hits in. I hunt with just about every weapon in Monster Hunter, so I'm well aware that some weapons will be better suited to different monsters, but I don't like the idea of giving up on the Sword and Shield just because of wind pressure and reach issues. I was taking a look at what I could make to give myself an edge, and I settled on the Death Prize. This is the final upgrade of an offshoot of the Hunter Knife made from Genprei materials that has a decent amount of green sharpness and attack, and comes with the benefit of 260 paralysis. Paralysis is one of a few status damage types in Monster Hunter 1, the other two being sleep and poison. Element and status both functionally work the same way in that every hit has a chance to proc them. They differ in that element damage procs add typed elemental damage onto whatever the weapon would normally do, while status builds up against a monster's tolerance threshold before taking effect. Then, the monster will become more resistant to the status, increasing the threshold you have to meet in order to proc it. Using Rathalos as our example, his paralysis tolerance starts at 100. That means I'll need my attacks to proc paralysis buildup on him until the amount reaches 100. He'll then be locked in place for 10 seconds, allowing me to flail around crazy style. After that, I'll need to build up 150 points of paralysis, then 200, capping out at 250. He can still be paralyzed beyond this, but his tolerance won't go any higher. Most of the time, you're pretty lucky to proc a status more than 3 times on a hunt. Poison and sleep work the same way. The former does damage over time, and the latter makes the monster fall asleep. I also made sure to make more healing items like potions and mega potions, cooked steaks for stamina management, and I had a nitro shroom in my box, so I used it and a fire herb to make gunpowder and combined that with a large barrel to make a large barrel bomb. This will be helpful as barrel bombs do explosive damage, which is essentially true damage that ignores the toughness of a monster's parts and can also break those parts. A large bomb does 80 damage, and that damage is increased pretty significantly if it's the first thing that hits the monster when it's asleep. I found conflicting information on whether it's 2 times or 3 times damage, but at minimum you're looking at 160 true damage. In comparison, the Vile Serpent Blade I mentioned earlier at green sharpness would do 108 damage on its most powerful attack before taking into account a monster's defense on whatever part I'd hit. Hell, I'd make more of these bombs to take along with me, but I only had 1 nitro shroom and I was getting impatient. I hadn't been able to work on the script for this video in over a week. I was all caught up. I needed to best Rathalos and I needed it now. I was a bit concerned that the lack of mobility on Lance and the dense population of Velociprey in some of the zones would make it difficult to actually fight Rathalos, so I figured I'd take it out first. If I just couldn't hack it with the Lance, then move on to the Greatsword, find the right tool for the hunt. It went way better than I expected. Lance is, from my understanding now, the strongest weapon in Monster Hunter 1. It's the most used weapon for a technique called headlocking, where the Lance user will repeatedly attack the head of a monster and essentially chain flinch them so that they can't move or attack. Additionally, the way damage calculations on Lance work is different to the other 3 melee weapons. When a Lance attack strikes a monster part, it checks against both the cutting and 72% of the blunt effectiveness and will take the higher result in the damage calculation, though the Lance's damage will be cutting regardless of the result. This doesn't really matter in terms of Rathalos. Cutting damage is just better overall on him, but I found this to be really interesting. Let's take Young Kutku's head for instance. 50% cutting effectiveness, 80% blunt effectiveness. Hitting it with a lance, the game will check 50 cutting against 72% of the 80 blunt, which comes out to about 57. This means that a lance hitting Kutku in the head is getting 57% effectiveness, whereas a greatsword or sword and shield would only get the 50. As far as cutting damage goes, this thing is cracked. It wins no matter what you're hitting. This is a long-winded way of saying the weapon I thought I'd have the most trouble with ended up being the weapon I beat Rathalos with after only a few attempts. What a fucking cinematic way to do it, huh? Like charging cavalry running into a line of spears. So, now we've got access to 5-star quests in the village and, well, I mean, come on, it's Rathalos. I know, I just said I was getting impatient to keep making the video, but it's Rathalos, the first flagship monster of the series. I might hate most of his moves, but the armor's pretty good. High defense and high fire resistance, which we've been dealing with a lot lately and will definitely continue to deal with throughout the rest of this video. I tried farming for a while to get the helmet. The only material I'm missing is a Rathalos wing, which at this point I can only get as a 1% drop chance from the capture quest, and I spent a couple days grinding relentlessly for this thing and I couldn't get it to drop to save my life. I used to play WoW religiously, so I'm used to a long grind, but once the helmet was the last thing I was grinding for, it didn't really feel worthwhile anymore. I did want to see how the death prize would fare against him too. It took a few hunts, but I did manage it. It went about as well as I figured it would. The problem with Sword and Shield's lack of reach and the fact that any of its attacks can get knocked into a flinch state from wind pressure Rathalos kicks up makes it kind of a chore. Locking him down with paralysis is nice, but there were plenty of times where I couldn't take full advantage of it due to dropping down to yellow sharpness and bouncing off of him. I tried Greatsword as well, but overall I feel like Lance is the way to go with him, at least while playing solo. To reward us for slaying the Rathalos, the village chief wants to present us with a gift, the sword he used to defeat a raging Monoblos when he was younger. It's been stuck in a stump behind our house ever since he decided to retire, and it looks like it could use some sharpening. It's a sword and shield called the Hero's Blade and has one upgrade into the Master Sword, blade, but we need a hunter citation and the heart of a Monoblos, neither of which I've come across yet. You know, I'd been wondering for a while just why I was having so much trouble with Rathalos, and it hit me during the grind to make the armor set. I don't have any armor skills. For the uninitiated, in most Monster Hunter games, armor pieces come with points in certain skills that help you perform better in a hunt. Things like increased attack or defense, covering more distance while dodging, making your shield tankier, sharing the effects of items you use with friends. Typically, by the time you'd be hunting a Rathalos in other games, you're gonna have at least one armor skill. Even more if it's modern Monster Hunter. We'll talk about skill bloat when I get to World. So yeah, it makes tons of sense why I'm having trouble with Rathalos. Beyond the things I've already said, like his fucked up hitboxes, the janky camera, and small monster harassment. The armor I'm making is only helping in terms of defense and elemental resistance. I'm basically out here getting raw dogged by Rathalos when before I'd be wrapped up in the safety of my comfort skills. Hell, that first 5 hours was so bad I labeled the video file Rathalos fucks me raw. So it turns out that the way armor skills work in the first game is a little different than other pre-world Monster Hunters. Skills are actually applied as set bonuses of a sort. For example, the armor I'm wearing right now is the Iapre helmet, chest, and legs, a steel belt, and Kutku gloves. If I had Iapre gloves instead, then I'd get a poison immunity skill from having the chest, gloves, and legs equipped. I'd been one piece of gear away from getting an armor skill for like 10 hours of my game time and I didn't even realize. That would have helped so fucking much for all the times Rathalos was poisoning me. Unfortunately, this wasn't something I learned in-game. I was scrolling the wiki when I saw the list of armor sets and their associated skills. Well, fuck. Alright, for 5-star quests, we've got, more of the same as before, really. We have a capture quest for Rathalos. There's a princess who wants it as a pet, so I guess we're in the business of domesticating monsters. A gold miner needs us to handle a pack of 20 Genprey before their group is attacked. The guards need us to handle 3 Velocidrome now. The jungle envoy is back. 3 Iodrome are harassing their village. A desert lord needs us to handle 3 Gendrome. Farmers need help with 30 Vespoids and 20 Velociprey in separate quests. Last and least, the Lady Gourmet wants us to nab 3 wyvern eggs from the forest and hills. Good. Of note, Plesioth shows up in the Vespoid quest. It's a big fish that stands on 2 legs like a Cephadrome. It's actually the main version of the monster, with Cephadrome being a subspecies. With 5-star cleared out, we have our next urgent quest, Horn of the Monoblos. A royal envoy brings word that their soldiers have been laid low by a Monoblos, and rumor has it the hunters in our village are among the best. Now, I've never hunted a Monoblos before, but if it's anything like a Diablos, it's gonna be charged charging back and forth like it's doing sprints. Lance has treated me well so far, so I don't see any reason to change it up now. Alright, so first thoughts, I like this fight way better than Rathalos. It's been a while since I fought a Diablos, but I'm pretty sure I recognize most of these moves. Charging lunge, dig underground to try and peg ya, atomic hip check, tailspin, all of that. I took it down on my first try and only carded once because of an Apsaros. Fuck Apsaros. God, the small monster aggression is psychopathic. This is something I'm glad they changed in modern Monster Hunter. Nothing gets me more upset in this game than getting dogpiled in a corner after eating an attack from a jank hitbox. Monoblos feels a lot more balanced as a fight because most of its shit is actually telegraphed properly. For instance, the charge attack it does is preceded by the monster doing this squaring up animation. Monoblos is also a lot bigger than Rathalos, so even if the move is super telegraphed, you can still get caught by it because the monster's a wide boy. It can still do a one-frame charge out of nowhere, but only when it's enraged, which feels fair. Monsters generally hit harder and move faster when they're mad. My only real complaint is that he's really tall, so a lot of the time you're going to be between his legs trying to get any significant damage out, and he likes to turn in place a lot, so a lot of tripping and chip damage coming from those thick legs. Interestingly, Monoblos gives 4 body carves and 2 tail carves. That's usually something reserved for particularly special monsters like Elder Dragons, so it's a little strange to see here. Oh, it's because he's the endgame of the village. I see. Since Monoblos's armor skills give a large attack boost and negate paralysis at the cost of my max stamina draining faster, I went ahead and made the set. Might as well. Even if I'm near the end, I should take advantage of the skill system now that I know about it. It wasn't too hard. You need Crimson Horns, which only drop from the quest rewards if you break his horn. It's pretty easy. If he charges at this ledge, his horn will get stuck. You can put down a couple large barrel bombs and a small one right in front of him. They'll detonate, he'll go for another charge and get stuck, and that's when you put down your third large barrel bomb and your second small bomb. Most of the time this will break the horn, but if not, just get him to charge the ledge again and whack at his face a few times. It'll pop right off. You'll have to do this 4 times to make the 3 pieces of armor, so it's really not too bad. I had to do it a few more times than that because I accidentally made the wrong helmet, and I figured I'd upgrade my Golem Blade into Siegmund, which took 2 horns. Look, this video probably would have been done way sooner, but I was enjoying my time exploring, so a few extra hours of grind is worth it. The village chief is thoroughly impressed with our ability to take such a big horned monster and labels us the new hero of Kokoto. There's not much else he feels like he can teach us. This is technically the end of the village quests and would be the end of this video. That is, if I weren't going to show you the hidden unlockable village quests. Aren't I just nice? There's 5 in total, and while we're on the topic of Monoblos, we might as well start with what it's a subspecies of, and that's Diablos. In order to access this quest, called the Runaway Diablos, we need at least 1 piece of Monoblos armor. The border guard captain in the desert needs help slaying the Diablos as it bursts through a border wall and is running amok. There's not too much different about this fight compared to Monoblos. Diablos is slightly more resistant to damage overall. I'd say the biggest difference is that she's got way more places on her body that even green sharpness can't get through, so some weapons are gonna have a harder time finding places where they won't bounce. She doesn't get an intro cutscene like most of the monsters we fought, which is Alright, next up, the Shadow in the Cave. To see this quest, we need a piece of Vespoid armor. The request comes from a noble lady. Out in the swamps, a child is lost in the cave system. Unfortunately, a mysterious gray wyvern is prowling the area and needs dealt with before a rescue can be mounted. This is our first glimpse at the swamp map. It's really misty and wet, lots of water everywhere. Of note, multiple areas have both Genprey and Ioprey hanging around, which is a first. They're totally not completely annoying during the hunt, I promise. If you haven't guessed yet, we're hunting a Kezu. This flabby pee-pee monster comes complete with a stretchy neck and the ability to launch and surround itself with electricity. I have to admit, I was a little surprised to see it in the swamp. Any other game I've played with Kezu in it, he's primarily in snowy biomes. Beat on him for a while and he'll eventually retreat to the caves. It's cold in there, so bring some hot drinks. I gotta admit, he's kinda flaccid. The Kezu I'm used to fighting are often an absolute pain with tough hides and multiple AoE electricity attacks to catch you out, like this jumping attack he does here. I'm really used to seeing him all electrified when he does it. Not to mention the radius of his AoE attack is super small. I had to intentionally be way too close and overcommitting on my attack strings to get caught by it. If you've had any exposure to Monster Hunter, it's probably the fact that Kezu has the best music in the series. Yeah, don't that just tickle your ears? Seriously though, the reason why Kezu has no fight music is because it's got no eyes. Check it out. The combat state of a monster is triggered when they become alerted to you, most often when they can see you. This change from passive to aggressive often comes with a few adjustments to the game state. Number one, the monster's music starts playing, or the generic fight theme if a monster doesn't have a specific piece for themselves. The second is this over-the-top panicked running animation when you're sprinting away from a monster. If you dodge while doing this, your character performs a Superman dive instead of rolling. This typically has extended iframes and travels a bit further. How does this relate to Kezu? Since Kezu has no eyes, it can't see you. Sure, it can fight you and tell where you are, but because it never sees you, combat is never triggered, which means no music and no Superman dive. It's a pretty unique way to handle a monster, and even though I hate hunting Kezu, I do appreciate that they were thinking outside the box, even in the first entry to the series. Man, this game's roster really is like most of the dickheads people groan about fighting whenever they're mentioned, huh? Alright, next quest. Basarios, Unseen Peril. To see this quest, you'll need to have at least one piece of Cephalos armor. A Basarios blindsided an expedition to the volcano, and a survivor is requesting a hunter to handle it. The volcano's the last main explorable map in the game. There's technically 2 other maps we can go to, but they're not present in the village, so I won't be going over them in this video. I'm gonna be real, Basarios is super fucking lame. I didn't like him in Rise, I don't like him here. He's not my least favorite monster. That privilege is reserved for Kushala Daora, the windy fuck. He's a big rock chungus with incredibly hard armor who farts poison. I actually changed up my armor for the hunt explicitly so I'd have poison immunity because fuck that. I don't really know if he moves around the rest of the volcano or not. He just kind of hung around this first area until I slayed him. Do yourself a favor and bring a hammer for this one. No, seriously, at one point I bounced off of him so many times in a row it stunned me. I didn't even know that was possible. You can get a tail cut on him, but like, why would you? He doesn't have an armor set, and in carving the tail just gives you an increased chance of getting Macalite and his shell part. You can use these for a couple weapons, but by this point I'm pretty settled with my end of village loadouts. Bring a hammer, super pound him to death, do it for your sanity. He's a better source of Macalite than any of the mining nodes in village, I'll give him that. Basarios is actually the adolescent form of the target of our next quest, Terror of the Gravios. To unlock this quest, you need to have completed Basarios Unseen Peril. See how I lined that up? I know, I'm pretty slick. It's like I was writing a script for this or something. But I don't like Basarios very much. I fucking love Gravios. I don't think he's in my top 10, but I haven't really solidified that yet. Gravios just hits in all the ways Basarios doesn't. He's big, he shoots lasers, he puts you to sleep. Okay, I actually don't like that part very much, but I'll take it over being poisoned, I guess. His overall design just looks and feels better, if you ask me. He's also got this interesting 2-stage part break on his chest where you strip away the rocky exterior to land solid hits on his gooey insides. As a hunt, it feels far more thought out and realized compared to Basarios. He's really big, so the atomic hip check is a bit hard to work around, but we got there. Hell, I was able to finish him off with a barrel bomb detonation. It felt pretty cool. His music kicks ass too. It's all like... all in all, cool monster, got a pretty neat glow up in wilds too. Okay, that's 4 quests down. The 5th and final quest of Kokoto Village only appears after completion of every other quest the chief has. Our final quest is called A Troublesome Pair. The chief of the village has a challenge for us. Hunt 2 monsters at once, the first being a Rathalos and the second, Rathian. This is the final step, the last hurdle I must overcome in order to finish off the village and this video. I've hunted far too many Rathalos over the course of this playthrough, but I have yet to hunt his wife. In Monster Hunter 1. I've slain a metric fuck ton of them in other games. It actually wasn't that bad. I didn't even cart once. There was a small moment of fear where Rathalos went to the same zone Rathian was in, but he didn't stick around long and she didn't pay me any mind. The more wide open spaces of the swamp made the fight against Rathalos easier. Outside of a few close calls, he wasn't much trouble. Rathian has a lot of the same moves as Rathalos does, save for the fact that she's much more grounded. She has a triple fireball when enraged and a backflip in the air while she tries to smack you with her tail, which also poisons you. I only saw her do the flip once and I was wearing my poison immunity armor, armor, so I didn't have anything to worry about if she hit me with it. I got the tail cut on both of them because we got a match, and with plenty of time to spare, she went down easy. Returning to the village, the chief congratulates us on our achievement. We've completed every quest the village has to offer. There's nothing more he can teach us. With that, Kokoto village is complete. Time to get out all this gear and take a fucking nap. Whenever I see discussion about Monster Hunter 1 and by extension DOS online, the general opinion always seems to be that the originals aren't worth looking at because Freedom Unite exists and combines the content of each into a more streamlined package. The controls can be janky, the camera fucking sucks, small monster aggression is ridiculous, and the amount of damage I was taking even with a high defense rating was still pretty high. Despite all of that, at the end of the day, it's Monster Hunter. It's got fun moments. I genuinely enjoyed my time in the village despite some of the speed bumps. Don't get me wrong, some parts of this really suck ass. Every fight with Rathalos is like pulling teeth, but I still had the motivation to make almost all of his armor set. I still put 100 hours into the village. I haven't even touched the multiplayer town yet. Plus, I won't lie, DOS is the entry I see talked about the least, but never in a good way. So of course, I have a burning curiosity to see that shit for myself. Dot Hack is also getting a revival with a reboot of the series being announced, and that makes me want to break out my copy of Infection and make a video on that, so I'm being pulled in a few different directions creatively. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you wanna. The reception of my Wilds Gogmazios video is really motivating, and I really enjoy the process of making these videos. I'm feeling creatively fulfilled, and I can see myself getting better and better at my art every time I pick up my pen. Like, I've also started streaming less so I can spend more time on these videos. Shout out to Louvaine, by the way. I never expected to get noticed by one of my biggest inspirations, and as of recording, my Gogmazios video's at like 330 views, which is the most I've ever had on an edited video. Love you, girly pop. My socials are linked in the description. Oh, and I made a straw page at punchrabbit.straw.page. You can send me questions or silly doodles and stuff. It's neat. I have a Ko-Fi too. The fact that you watched my videos support enough, so I'm not out here expecting donations or anything, but you know, I'm hoping the next video won't take 2 months, but I guess we'll see. I really appreciate anyone who took the time to watch this. It means a lot. I want to make more cool things that people can enjoy. I think that's all for now, but I'll be back real soon.